Hey everyone, this is your stimulus check update, second stimulus check update and stimulus package update for Tuesday, August 18th. In this update, I will talk about why I think that they're getting closer to a deal on the next stimulus package. Many of you who are on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits are wondering when the next stimulus check will be coming. Once they pass the next stimulus package, all of you should be getting the second stimulus check. The negotiations between the House and Senate have stalled in recent weeks, but there is still a lot of news going on. In this video, I will share the following. Will President Trump and the White House agree to include United States Postal Service funding in the next stimulus package? Nancy Pelosi called the House back into session this week to pass funding on the United States Postal Service. Mitch McConnell called for talks to resume on the next stimulus package. President Trump is ready to send rental assistance payments. The Problem Solvers Caucus continues to meet in order to help get a deal done. And last, we'll talk about the coronavirus numbers and how they may not be nearly as bad as we all think they are. Welcome back to those subscribed members of my community. Thank you once again so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe so that I can share with you all the latest on the stimulus check updates and the second stimulus check. And if you find this content helpful, be sure to hit the like button so that YouTube will share it with others like you. I do appreciate all the support you give me as you watch my videos, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Now first off, last week, one of the biggest sticking points on the next stimulus package was funding for the United States Postal Service. That funding has been something that Nancy Pelosi and President Trump have been arguing back and forth about, and it's been a major point of contention recently. However, when asked recently during a press conference if President Trump was willing to include $25 billion for funding for the Postal Service as part of the next stimulus package, he said, "Sure, if they give us what we want, it's not what I want, it's what the American people want." So he's willing to give up funding for the Postal Service as the House of Representatives and Nancy Pelosi have asked for, $25 billion, as long as they're willing to give up some of the things that they haven't been willing to concede on. So hopefully that post office funding is not going to be an issue with regards to the next stimulus package. It seems like both sides may finally be in agreement that they will include post office funding in the next stimulus package. In addition to what President Trump said, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told CNN's State of the Union, "Let's go ahead and get a stimulus check out to Americans. Let's make sure that small businesses are protected with an extended payroll protection program and put postal funding in there. We'll pass it tomorrow. The president will sign it." So President Trump and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said that the White House and the administration are both on board with sending funding for the post office as part of the next stimulus check. That's good news for the passage of the next stimulus bill. Speaking of funding for the United States Postal Service, Nancy Pelosi called the House of Representatives back into session this week in order to craft and vote on a bill that would provide funding for the post office as well as restrict the organizational changes that were set to go into effect earlier this year. I do find it interesting that Nancy Pelosi is willing to call the House of Representatives back into session specifically to fund the United States Postal Service, while we know that she's already said that she would not accept piecemeal bills as part of the next stimulus package. This itself sounds like a piecemeal bill, and so I'm not sure why she thinks that the post office is more deserving than the American people. That's just kind of what I'm seeing here, and it seems really strange to me. Mitch McConnell, who's kind of been the bad guy in a lot of this, and rightfully so, has actually called recently for the stimulus talks to resume. He told Fox News that the American people are sick of the stalemate, and he continued, "I think it's time for everybody to get back to the table and let's get a deal done." I know most people haven't agreed with Mitch McConnell on much during these stimulus talks, and I would be one of them. However, it does sound like he's finally saying what we've all been saying all along. Congress, get back together and get a deal done. Thank you, Mitch McConnell, for saying the total obvious that we're all thinking right now. President Trump recently said, quote, that he was ready to send rental assistance payments. However, it wasn't clear if he was referring to the eviction moratorium and rental assistance that he signed as part of his executive orders a week or so ago. However, whatever he's referring to, it would be welcome news to get some rental assistance payments, especially for those of you that are on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits, as I know a lot of you are still struggling financially. A recent study found that 1 in 5 people are worried about facing a possible eviction by the time the eviction moratorium expires at the end of September. So if there is some sort of rental assistance, I know that would be welcome news to a lot of individuals. The Problem Solvers Caucus, a bipartisan group made up of House of Representative lawmakers, has met recently and met last weekend with Mark Meadows as a representative of the Trump administration. 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans from the Problem Solvers Caucus, who are also members of the House of Representatives, met with Mark Meadows, and one of their representatives said this: members of the Problem Solvers Caucus spoke with Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to discuss ways to help break the logjam between parties, get negotiators back in the room, and help America in response to the COVID crisis. Despite their efforts, no new talks have been scheduled between the White House and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. However, it is good to see that some lawmakers are still trying to broker a deal on the next stimulus package. And it is good to see that this is a bipartisan group made up of both Democrats and Republicans that are pushing for the stimulus check and the stimulus package deal to get through. Congress really needs to just figure this out, get back together, meet on this, and get a deal signed so that people can start getting their stimulus checks. Nearly everyone is still in agreement on the 3 main parts of the next stimulus package, and those 3 things are the things that I think should be in the stimulus package no matter what. And those 3 things are: first, unemployment extension. That expired at the end of July and has really hurt a lot of people that were on unemployment because they don't get those extra benefits from the federal government. The second thing is a stimulus check of $1,200. Those of you on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits are still waiting for that second stimulus check, and many are still even waiting for the first stimulus check. And I think those that are claimed as dependents on someone else's taxes are especially waiting since they were left out of the first stimulus check. But that should be a part of the next stimulus package. And the third thing should be a renewal of the eviction moratorium so that people can stay in their homes or apartments and without fear of being kicked out because they owe money on their mortgage or on their rent. Those 3 things need to be part of the next stimulus package, and I think they will be part of the next stimulus package. They need to just get together and get something passed that will include those 3 things. So now I want to talk about some of the coronavirus numbers and how maybe these numbers aren't nearly as bad as a lot of us are thinking. Everything we hear from the news right now is bad news and how the virus is spreading and everything else, and it does seem to be spreading, and it does seem to be a lot of bad news right now. So first, let's talk about the hard numbers. There have now been over 5.4 million people in America that have contracted coronavirus. And of those 5.4 million people, about 170,000 people have died from the virus. So that's pretty bad that we've had 170,000 people die from the coronavirus. However, those numbers may not be quite as bad as they seem. A recent poll asked Americans how bad they thought the numbers were, and many Americans overestimated the influence by percentage on the American people. On average, people said that they thought that 20% of Americans had contracted the coronavirus. And they also thought that about 9% of Americans had died from the coronavirus. Those numbers seem like they could be realistic, as we hear about the cases all the time and how they're rising and how so many people are dying from it. However, the percentages are much, much lower than that. Only 1% of Americans have actually contracted the coronavirus or COVID-19, despite the fact that this poll showed that people thought that 20% of Americans had actually contracted the virus. And the percentage of death of Americans from the coronavirus is even way lower than that. Only 0.04% of Americans have actually died from the coronavirus, not 9%, as was expected from the people that took that poll. It is only a fraction of a percent of people in this country that have died from the coronavirus. Now, I'm not trying to minimize the fact that 170,000 people have died. That is still a huge number. And I know, especially for those of you that have a friend or a loved one that has passed away from coronavirus, This has hit us really hard, and it has hit our country and really caused so many problems and so much sadness in a lot of people's lives. However, it's not actually as bad as we think as an overall whole. There is a lot of fear out there, and my only hope is that we won't live in fear. Sure, we'll do all the things that we've been asked to do, wash our hands, sanitize our hands, and do what we can to minimize contact with other people. However, we should not live in fear. This isn't every single person dying. This isn't a flesh-eating virus that, if you contract it, you basically are going to die no matter what. Yes, it can be deadly, especially for those that are unhealthy or have compromised immune systems. However, as a majority of the people, even if you get it, you're probably going to be okay. That's the great news. Of course, it's sad that we have lost a lot of people. It is terribly sad that we've lost so many people. However, we should not let fear rule our lives. We should be hopeful, and we should be confident that we're going to be safe as long as we wash our hands, stay clean, and we should be okay. We will get through this as a country, because I know as a country we're strong, and I know us as individuals we're strong as well. I know so many of you are struggling financially, and I'm so sorry for that. But despite these difficulties, I know you're going to get through this. We've had tough times before, and I know each one of us has had tough times before, but we will get through them. You are stronger than you think. Focus on serving other people and helping other people that are even less fortunate than you, and your problems will become minimized. Stay hopeful. Better times are going to come. They always do. Focus on those things that are going well in your life and those things that are good in your life. Thank you once again for watching. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay positive, and I will talk to you again soon.